This is Paul Murray Live.
Thank you, Sherry. Hello, mate. Come on into the man cave. We've got a lot of work to do tonight and all week long, and I need the whole hour, so don't go anywhere. You're in exactly the right spot. Now, normally on this program, this channel in general, we talk a lot about politics, right? We'll obviously tell you about what happens in Parliament each and every day, the action in and around question time. We also talk about, the policies, the people, the personalities. And yes, we often talk about polling, how people are going to vote. Put simply, politics, of course, is always a big part of what we do here. But I wanted to take a second to talk about culture, because culture can't just be easily divided from our politics, and politics is part of our culture. And the olden days of sport not having any politics in it, all of it long gone. It is all one giant mix that starts to reflect each other. And yes, I was brought up in the 1980s. I'm a Gen Xer, and I'm very much a person who was brought up by television. So television, of course, for a kid from the 80s, was something that, of course, stretched all the way back to the great legends of the 1950s, 60s and 70s, all the way through till whatever the day of the week is, where we all love to watch television in all of its new forms. And obviously, as you can tell here, the Logies are a big part of that. There's no bigger part of Australian television culture than the annual Night of Nights, where this year Sam Pang unsurprisingly won the gold Logie. He's been running at it for a while. Incredibly talented person who deserves his place at the top of the table of the Australian television industry. But of course the Logies are connected back to Bert Newton and Graham Kennedy. The next generation, the ones who grew up watching that, was, say, Andrew Denton when he took over as host in the 90s. And again, he was kind of the symbol of Gen X, kind of the Gen X version of Graham Kennedy in terms of how significant to the culture he was. And I'm so pleased last night that he went into the Hall of Fame. Sean McAuliffe, of course, around the turn of the century, and then Sam Pang over the past few years. Now, I have been very lucky enough to attend the Logies once. It is the one and only time that I assume I will be ever invited to the Logies, and it was pretty good because it was when we won a Logie for the federal election coverage, that being the whole team. And while I will probably never get a do-over of going up onto the stage without tucking my shirt in, to know that you're symbolically standing on the same stage as all of the people that you grew up watching, all of the people you grew up hoping to meet, let alone to become, it's a lovely little moment. But as you know, this year's Logies had a couple of little barbs. Now, it's always got some little barb, but there were plenty of them. And this is not your traditional, they're all lots of lefties and why don't they be nicer to everyone else? But the gags were as follows. Shane Jacobson, of course, first famous for playing the Portaloo guy in Kenny, but now, well, he's got to play to the room, doesn't he? Because the room is oh so left.
Oh, God, if Pauline Hanson's mouth was this hard to open, wouldn't the world be a better place? All right.
It doesn't surprise me that Tom Gleisner and Mick Malloy again decided that, the easiest joke of all was to have a gag at, a name that doesn't exist anymore.
We have the best factual or documentary category.
Now, best factual is open to anyone.
Anyone.
With the possible exception of Sky News.
Sky News.
I'm pretty sure none of our documentaries have had to be pulled due to questions in and around their accuracy. That's currently playing out over on Channel 2. But I understand. And then there was the host, Robert Irwin. Now, he's sort of trying to present himself as the ultimate clean skin. And one of the reasons why old school performers never really got political, even though Bert Newton was hardcore Labor, he was there in the It's Time ads, but essentially still, it was the idea that you could project your politics onto them. But of course, he wants to eventually play for a career, wants to play for the gold medal. So he went for the low-hanging fruit of the Karl Stefanovic joke.
Unfortunately, Karl Stefanovic didn't RSVP tonight, which means we didn't have to hire quite as many bartenders. But we've kept him a spare seat, just in case. It's over there to the right, the far right.
And then again, Dave Hughes was a focus. Why? Because he has been brave enough to say he doesn't buy it anymore when it comes to the lies at the federal or the state level when it comes to the Labor Party. His receipt was this from the stage.
Apparently, I hear that Channel 10 is also developing a reboot of Hughesy, We Have a Problem. And I think it's called, no, seriously, Hughesy, We Have a Problem.
Best case scenario, he's just reading what was written for him, but you get the point, right? And of course, it is not that long ago that Dave Hughes used to open the show. For years, there was no host of the Logies because pretty much around that sort of 2010 period of time, anyone who hosted the Logies got bagged so hard that they just went, that's it, no more hosts. So Dave Hughes kind of ended up being the de facto host because he would come out and he would open up the Logies each and every year. He was even at the height where he was significant enough that in 2022, just 4 years ago, he was a big enough name to present the biggest prize of the night, the Gold Logie, the award that has lineage from Sam Pang last night all the way back to Don Lane, to Bert and to Graham. And this is how he introduced things when he was more to the room's liking.
No, it's been a long night, and ScoMo was right, wasn't he? It's not easy under Albanese. Which could be the worst ad campaign of all time.
And he, by his own admission, lifelong Labor voter. Why am I talking about all of this? Not because I'm complaining that, shock horror, there are lots of lefties in the artistic community, but there's a reason many of those jokes played out the way that they did last night. As for Dave Hughes, again, this idea that somehow he's lost his way because he's changed his mind seems to me to be kind of weird. Now, again, he was happy when Albanese became Prime Minister, 2022. You saw that. Champion for their re-election in 2025. Well, unsurprisingly, the lies that have now become laws, he went, and that's it, I've had enough. And as you know, he's well and truly had enough in Victoria, so much so that he's actually now publicly supporting Jess Wilson to be the next Premier of Victoria. There is no greater sin to the left than to have been one of their champions and to then find free thought.
Just all I want to do is change the government down here in Victoria. So, and I'm jumping on the Liberals to hopefully get the job done.
Sort of lifelong change. He's not getting a tattoo. He's hardly signing up as a member. He just recognises, like hopefully millions of people in Victoria, that if you just keep the same people in place, then the same garbage is going to happen over and over and over again. And Jess Wilson has absolutely hit the threshold of somebody who you could entrust running the state with for the next 4 years, right? By the way, this was his reaction to the jokes. And again, he's a comedian, right? He knows that people hit hard, and sometimes they just hit hard because it's truth to power, and sometimes because it's the easiest joke in the room.
I knew I'd get a mention of the Logies last night, and I didn't have to be there, so that was a win. And yeah, no, fair enough. We do have a problem in this country. There's no doubt about it. So Robert is right, and I appreciate his him mentioning it.
But you see, the Logies culture is just as influential as our education. In many ways, it's either an escape or a reinforcement when it comes to our family and our friends. And it's not that hard to work out that the perfect version of a citizen, according to today's culture, is somebody who is of the left, not even the hard left, just well and truly not of the right or the light right or the far right, as they like to describe. Literally, childcare centres. There's a story every single day about how hard left they are. At schools, there are socialist teachers that are openly saying they are socialist teachers running for Parliament. Do I need to make the case about the culture of university? Now, are they conservatives in all of these places? Sure, but are they minorities? Yes. Are they the ones leading anything? No. And then, of course, in workplaces, well, we know how all of that has changed, particularly when it comes to the public service. But the reason I spend all this time at the start of the show talking about a television award show that you may or may not care about, I certainly care about it. Why? Because I'm a kid from the 80s. I love TV. I love the history of television. Most of my YouTube algorithm, if it's not politics or motor racing, it's the Don Lane Show. It's old Aussie TV that I love swimming around and having a look in. Some of those jokes, by the way, if they ever got replayed on television, some of the people that are protesting about how Pauline Hanson is a pelican, as Paul Hogan said, he might want to check some of his own tapes about what's acceptable anymore. But something I have absolutely learned since being a kid who dreamt of being on the radio, dreamt of being on the television, and the young adult and now man who has been lucky enough to call this a career, is there's something that I've absolutely worked out. Be they the Logies, be they the Walkleys, be they the ACTA Awards. Awards are in many ways the way that cultures police themselves. That there's no way anyone who has a right of centre opinion could be considered a good broadcaster or a good performer. No, the content has to match, not just the talent that may or may not exist. So the reality is that as soon as you are not of the cool left, the cultural left or the far left, the first thing they do is they joke about you. The second thing they do is they say, geez, I prefer Dave Hughes when he wasn't as political as he is now. And these are all ways of policing culture. The message being sent to everyone who would like to dream of being on those stages one day is a not so subtle message that, well, if you play the game a certain way, then you will be able to get there. Do not be distracted into going off into the, geez, we wish it didn't exist section of the media. Which is why the reality of life outside of that club can be pretty lonely. The truth is that I would have lost more friends than gained more friends since having an opinion. Since having an opinion that at times family members and friends have sent me text messages in the middle of the night saying, that's it, no more. And the reality is it's everyone's free opinion to like or dislike what they do on television. But when you choose not to run with the crowd, when you choose to swim against the stream, not out of arrogance, but just out of a worldview that I believe that my fundamental value system as a human being has not changed. My opinions, sure, I'm not exactly the same person I was when I was 16, 26 or 36 or, well, probably the same as when I was 46. But the point is that as soon as you start swimming in these other areas, no one's going to nominate you for an award because it doesn't matter what you say. These awards are for the people who do the right thing. The only way you can joke is if you become a caricature. The only way you become a caricature is if nobody actually pays attention to what you say. And this is where you come in to the conversation. I have never wanted to do anything other than this with my whole life. When I was in primary school, I used to practice being a television newsreader. I would do so with a stack of papers and an ironing board. And I would sit there and I would mimic myself as a television host. And I got to work in FM radio and I got to meet lots of people who were there last night. I had the opportunity to be considered or to audition or to join many of the projects that still exist to this very day. And maybe, just maybe, there is an alternative path if I played the game a certain way. But I realised, being a Gen Xer, that all I could tell was the truth as I saw it. And that means that slowly but surely you fall out of favour with them. But I would take the freedom that I have here each and every night over the constraint of just trying to run with the crowd. And the only reason that I have that freedom is, of course, because of the support that I have from the management here, the colleagues here, the company that I work for, but above all, because you're willing to pay for it. The reality is that bitching and moaning does not change the cool kids. Bitching and moaning will not change who gets nominated or who wins awards. But if you want content that tells it as you see it, that feels it as you see it, that fights as you want it, then you've got to pay for it. That's something that if you've been on Foxtel for years, you've been doing it. If you're on the app, you've been doing that for years. Yes, lots of people see us on free-to-wear, but I hope also you can go and get that membership at news24.com.au/subscribe. But it also means that if you want Carl Stefanovic to succeed, then you've got to pay when he asks for you to pay. If you want Kyle to always be around, then you've got to pay when he asks to pay. When you've got a podcaster, when you've got anyone, the point is they all need to pay their mortgage too. This might be television, but it's still real life. We've got mortgages, we've got families, and we are very thankful that because of your support, because of an alternative economy, because of an economy without their approval, we're able to flourish and to be fearless. The only way that continues is if you join us on the journey for as long as you have, and hopefully for as long as you can. But there's one little thing that I also wanted to say as a positive about the Logies. I mentioned Andrew Denton before. There was no other performer on radio or television that I more envied than Andrew Denton. When I was working in high school at a news agency, I'd listen to his breakfast show each and every day, and I got the chance one day to work for the very radio station, to work with the people who worked with him. I've been very honoured to meet him multiple times and to have lunch right up to this day. I am so impressed by his advocacy, particularly around Go Gentle and the advocacy in and around assisted dying. But there was one thing that he said to the room of people who laughed at all the jokes about us, who rolled their eyes about all the people who had left the flock, that stood out to me as the reason why I truly love this guy. Does he agree with everything I say? No. Do I agree with everything he says? No. But the fearlessness of Gen X, the reason it was attracted to him as our version of Graham Kennedy, and the reason why I want to show you this is because this isn't just a conversation about television. What he said last night is what should extend to everyone in every part of their real life. This was his act of generosity while he was being inducted into the very same TV Hall of Fame that all of the greats are, and on behalf of Gen X, he deserves, as I told him in message last night, to sit at the very top of the table with them.
If you reckon you might be better than everything else that's out there, you may just be right. Don't be afraid to praise someone else, even if they're your rival or you don't know them. If they nail it, get the contact, text them, or give them a call. Get ready to fail. It's a part of the creative process. It hurts the time, but trust me, you'll laugh at the scars later in your life. There are few things more professionally joyful than wishing somebody success without agenda.
100%. So congratulations to you, Andrew Denton. Who cares to those who rolled their eyes? Remember that their prizes are a way of policing culture, but the most important thing that you have always done for me, and it's a long way of saying thank you, is that you have been willing to pay to make sure that the economy that does not require their approval doesn't just exist, it flourishes. Keep doing so, because we've got a lot more to say, a lot more to do, and a lot more to annoy them about between now and then. But congratulations, Andrew, and to everyone who won last night. Now, a sign of our politics, right? Of course, we can't stand Lydia Thorpe when she's carrying on at a rally. Most of us are not massive fans of the Prime Minister when it comes to his ability to put his feet up as a millionaire and then change the very system that made him a millionaire. And, of course, we've had plenty to say about the lady who's got tickets on herself who probably will be Prime Minister one day. Why? Because if you're of the left, you can just continue to fail upwards. But as harsh as all of our criticism is, none of us wish any emotional or physical harm to any of these people because it's just indecent, it's wrong, it's not okay. But of course, the game is very different when it comes to Pauline Hanson. As you know, last week when the kids were striking, and there wasn't that many of them, there were plenty who were willing to look into a camera, and because they're more compassionate than Pauline Hanson in their view, they thought she should die.
I'm at the students' protest against Pauline Hanson. Let's hear what they have to say.
Do you guys, what would you do if Pauline Hanson were here today? I'm not. I would shoot her. I would hit her. I would run and away. It's like beat her up. Kill her.
They're more compassionate, right? They get it more than we do. They're more enlightened than the rest of us. Well, as you may have heard this evening, there was an alleged assault which took place at the Royal Show in Brisbane, the Ekka. One Nation has got a stand there. There are lots of these more political things that turn up at local shows in Queensland than maybe anywhere else in the country, but they have every right to set up politically, as does the Labor Party, the Greens and everyone else. Well, we learned today that, again, an elderly staffer was apparently brutally attacked at the Ekka. Or, as the ABC says, One Nation says that a staffer was left hospitalised. The elderly One Nation staffer has been attacked by multiple people at Brisbane's Ekka in a brutal assault that landed her in hospital with a broken rib. There were 3 females, 1 male involved in the attack, One Nation spokesperson told news.com.au. It was a male who reportedly grabbed her, swung her around and punched her. The spokesperson claimed that alleging a woman also spat on the staffer. The spokesperson said to the victim, who was wearing One Nation branded clothing at the time and was running a stand at the agricultural show, was a grandmother in her 60s. She sustained a broken rib in the alleged attack and was hospitalised. Now, I hope the matter has been taken up by police. We'll all find out about that in the next couple of days. But again, no matter who you disagree with politically, the idea to turn it into violence is a disgrace. And the Prime Minister might want to talk about talking the temperature down. If this had happened to a Labor supporter wearing a Labor T-shirt, I'd be saying exactly the same thing. It is not okay. It is not acceptable. Here was James Ashby talking with Gary Hargrave on 4BC this morning.
Well, she was finally discharged from hospital just after 2 a.m. over the weekend, so she spent a bit of time in there, and that's where it's been revealed. She now has 1 broken rib. She's got enormous bruising.
And Barnaby Joyce on 2GB this morning.
She was spat at, punched. They broke a rib, and this is this is the wondrous, enlightened people like you saw at those demonstrations the other day.
None of this is acceptable, but it is amazing that when it happens outside of the approved politics, how silent the people who claim to care about trying to stop violence in our politics can be. The reality is, if this had happened to a Green supporter, I'd be saying exactly the same thing. If this was, again, somebody that I agreed or disagreed with, this is not acceptable. It's not acceptable at all. There should be much more rage about it. I hope the police get involved, and I hope that there is accountability as soon as possible. Now, you know how the federal government made a decision in and around the budget that allied healthcare for veterans was going to be limited to just $5,000 a year. Now, allied healthcare is not cosmetic surgery. It is everything from therapies through to things that make quality of life possible. Now, this government has turned around and decided that while there is no limit to the service, there is a limit on how much that Australia will support these people. John Armfield is a man who has confronted power in the past, and he is in Canberra as we speak because he is there to speak up on the behalf of his mates, known and unknown, and it was even mentioned today in the Parliament that he was there. Now, he joins us now from Canberra. John, lovely to meet you. Firstly, I just want to show what Michael McCormack said in the Parliament today, because it was a very important shout-out, because until the shout-out, until the pressure, the government had no plan to meet with you. Roll the tape.
Minister, more than 20 veterans and family members are in Parliament House today. They're in the gallery as I speak, to raise their concerns about your broken promise to impose a $5,000 cap on veterans' allied health services. Minister, these veterans have travelled to Parliament to be heard. Why have you refused to meet them? What or who could possibly be more important?
Well, John, not long after that, the meeting is scheduled. Has it happened yet?
Evening, Paul. Thanks for having me. Mate, the meeting did occur at 5:30 p.m. this evening. Minister Keogh pushed back for as long as he could, and thank you to Michael McCormack and Phil Thompson. They were able to put the pressure on Matt Keogh and force a meeting.
So what's the case that you took to the minister that his decision was wrong?
Paul, a coalition called the Coalition for Veterans Voices, we came to Canberra and we're a mixture of veterans, allied health professionals, and we wanted to represent the veterans and the families. And all we wanted to put to Matt Keogh tonight was, Matt, please scrap the cap, end the lowballing on allied health professionals and fix the system. Paul, Paul, it was actually quite a good day. We had a turnout by Labor MPs. Some did meet us and were quite gracious and compassionate. A lot of Liberal National Party members and One Nation. So everyone met us today and we were happy to discuss this, except for Matt Keogh. But after Michael McCormack in the Parliament today, he was able to pressure Matt into a meeting.
So what a surprise. Now, give me an idea, again, for those that are not quite across it. Allied Health. What's an example of something? And it's not cosmetic surgery, right? It's about true stuff that is not as desperate as life-saving, but, geez, it might feel like it sometimes in terms of quality of life. We'll get into the reaction to what he said in the meeting, but what is Allied stuff that is being capped at $5,000?
Mate, as you said, it's everything from exercise physiology, physiotherapy, but up to the really the issues that take a veteran to consider suicide, such as the mental health. I'm a great example of that, Paul. I was driven to the brink of considering things like that, and it was only through the support of mental health practitioners, psychologists, that I was able to get my life back on track.
Good man. Well, firstly, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you had that help, and I want that help to be tenfold for everyone else who needs it, mate. Strength and love to you and your family for being able to be here, to sit there, to be a person who had fallen as low as you did, but to sit as tall as you do tonight after being able to look the minister in the eye. So what did he say? Obviously, he's not going to backflip in a meeting, but what was your sense about, was it all excuses, or did something get past the talking points?
I can pretty much say a coalition, we're talking general practitioners, veteran advocates, and myself and another veteran horse. We met with Minister Keogh, as well as Julianne Finney, and Matt's not going to budge. We put propositions to him from the veteran and the allied health community, and his stance is solid that there will be no changes to the cap.
Because the spin in and around this is, look, if you get to the $5,000, somebody will turn around and they'll assess. But the whole point is, if somebody at the $5,000 mark is able to say computer says no, the consequences become very significant. But are we talking about a huge number of people who push through that $5,000? I mean, of all the red lines where they're drawing, $5,000 seems to be a pretty low line to be drawing in the sand here.
Paul, as we told Minister Keogh today, there's this narrative that the veterans or the allied health professionals are rorting the system. In Senate, DVA was asked about this. They believe there was 2 to 3 practitioners that may have. And we want transparency, we want accountability. And if anyone is rorting the system, but it shouldn't impact the veteran who has served the nation. When we enlisted and when we served and when we deployed, we believed that we were going to be looked after when we returned back to our country. And Matt Keogh doesn't see any sense in that. I put to him, I said, Matt, you're saying there should be 12, if after 12 treatments there's been no progress, we should stop it. I said, Matt, it took me more than 12 mental health appointments to get back on track. And I said, funnily enough, Matt, I emailed you personally in September 2022 begging you to intervene and help me. I said, Deputy Chief of Navy put a ministerial to you, Matt, in October 2022, and you ignored me and didn't get back to me for 9 months. I said it was only through that help that I did get that I'm still here. I've got a family, I've got 2 kids. And worst of all, Paul, in 2020 and 2021, the suicides in my own community within the military, we had 3 suicides within a few months, and one with about 9 days of another one. And you look at the families that are left behind. I got up to speak. I organised the first wake, and the chaplain goes, John, can you do this? I said, I did my own brother's. My brother committed suicide in 2011. But when I got up to speak, there's a 3-month-old looking at me, Paul. And that's what this fight is about. The veteran can handle whatever this Matt Keogh and the Labor government throws at us, but it's the families we leave behind.
100%, mate, 100%. All right, well, we've got plenty more to talk about. They got embarrassed into the meeting. You ended up having the meeting, but the fight ain't over. And I'm proud to tell you, it's pretty obvious that you, John, and all the people around you aren't going to be giving up easily. By the way, a reminder to everyone, we're talking about the $5,000 here. There's $4 billion of fraud in the NDIS every year. $4 billion. You heard there about 1, 2 or 3 practitioners maybe on the edge of things. John, strength to your hand, mate. We'll get more information. We'll publish it via the socials and we'll stay in touch. Good on you, John.
Thanks for your help, Paul.
Good man. Thank you very much. John Armfield, he was a Navy clearance diver. He went down there. The government got embarrassed. They eventually had the meeting. They won't be budging. Well, let's see what happens. Consider me now fully engaged. What a disgrace. More in a moment here on Paul Murray Live, including Chris Bowen's up to it again. How's he mucking around? How's he hurting the regions? What's the latest? You've got to find out straight after the break. Thanks for watching tonight. No Logies required. Thank you very much for watching. Joining me in the big room this evening, the Man Cave as we like to refer to it. I'm pretty sure that's still its name. Is none other than the great Darren Barnett. Lovely to see you here. Matt Canavan, leader of the Nats. After a big weekend, he is in Canberra, of course. So I wanted to get to the opinion polling and reporting that's been done ahead of the Bush Summit. That's going to be in Dubbo in a couple of weeks. And it tells us again about the difficulties that are happening in regional Australia. It says that 2/3 of Aussies in bush say that life has worsened for them. Now, Matt, you know this because, of course, you represent regional Australia. It's good that the Bush Summit will be there. No doubt you will be part of it, certainly have been in the past. But why is it that so many in that building, frankly, couldn't care less? Is it because they vote for the wrong people, or is it just because they can afford not to care because people in the bush are struggling?
Yeah, look, Paul, I'll be there. I'll be there at Dubbo again at the Bush Summit, so I look forward to that. Look, people in the bush are struggling, so are everyone around the country. That 2/3 figure's pretty much replicated in the city too. But there are different pressures in the bush. In particular, this massive increase in energy and fuel prices hits harder because the further you go out, the distances get longer, the costs get higher. So it's very, very tough for people there. Also, most or more of the economy, more of the jobs in outer metropolitan areas and rural areas are not connected to government, so they don't get the buffer of the government just giving us more money or public service salaries going up. When industry's doing it tough, when the economy does it tough, the whole town does it tough, and it's very, very tough to do business right now. Now, in terms of this building, I don't know. I can't read people's minds into why they do things, but certainly this government is I think, ignorant or has its head in the sand about these things, because you keep hearing from the government that everything's great. We've heard from the Housing Minister a couple of weeks ago, the Talia Plibersek, the Minister the other week, saying it's never been a better time to be a first home buyer. And last week was confirmed that actually there are 3% fewer first home buyers since the budget. We hear other ministers speak the fact that wages are going up. They don't say that prices have gone up even further. So your real wages, what you can really buy with your wages, has gone down 5% since this government has been elected. Around the developed world, it's gone up 5%. So we're going in the wrong direction as a country. That's hurting the bush as well. And we've got to have someone with a plan to turn it around.
Yeah, I mean, Darren, it feels to me that it's pretty obvious, right? That, does Labor run in these places? Yes. Do they expect to win them? No. However, places like the Hunter, there are other places where they have certainly increased their footprint at recent times.
North Queensland's another one. There are seats. Lots of Tasmania is fairly...
But you know the culture.
Rural.
You know the culture down there. You know the culture up there as well, which is... a lot of them just don't care. A lot of them, it's just, in terms of the policy formation, that it's a citizenry, but it's not really a citizenry that needs to be dealt with. Why? Because it's smaller than the one that they prefer to focus on, being the cities. Do you think that there is a two-tiered nature of effort that's put into taking care of people who live outside of the cities?
I think there's an automatic assumption that you look after your electorate, and so there's a little bit of out of sight, out of mind. That doesn't make it fair, and it doesn't make it desirable. But then when you combine that with the types of and we'll call them lobby groups or peak bodies that come to Canberra, you might meet with the national farmers, you might meet with meat and livestock. But there's a lot of people in rural Australia who are not living on the land. Like, there's a lot of people in sort of urban environments, and as per that those polling numbers, cost of living is number one by a street. Housing pressures are a little less because costs are a little less, but it's taken over, as Matt rightly points out, by increased costs for fuel and transport and other complications that come from living in the bush. So I hope Labor goes to the Bush Summit. I hope they take it seriously and that some good things come out of it.
All right, let's talk about the superannuation conversation, because the government thinks, a tripwire has been fired off here. If we say super 1,000 times and we point at everyone, not us, then somehow yet again this is going to be the next version of robbing little old ladies in the street. Look, One Nation have said that, yes, you should be able to get access to your superannuation because, while, yes, it is there partly, well, of course it's there for your retirement, it's still your money. The government is not involved in sort of matching dollar for dollar here. And if there's significant financial stress, then maybe you should be able to get access to some of it. This set their hair on fire. At the very fundamental principle, I'm not understanding exactly why the government is carrying on as if it's robbing every little old lady. Again, if you choose to pull money out of your account,
I'm not going to be on your side here,
choice.
Paul, unfortunately. But look, my view is compulsory superannuation has been enormously beneficial. It started a little bit before compulsory super for the blue-collar workers who were not going to be able to work into their 60s and 70s. So the old maritime workers and seafarers, it's looked after that cohort of people, and it's looking after people of my mum and dad's generation now.
I'm not arguing against super.
No, but should you be able to get access to it? I think once you start to create ways to get access, the whole system starts to break down. And it's a bit like paying marginal taxation. So, look, I support compulsory super. It's as simple as that. And so, therefore, I'm OK with the government's position on this. I understand the pushback, but I'm OK with the current settings.
So Matt, again, the government carried on today like that's it. The third rail was being piddled upon by people. And I get it. It was a One Nation conversation, but the invocation about this because it is something that the coalition's dealt with both in government and opposition. Your thoughts here?
Look, obviously the government was just responding in a very political way today, seeking to take advantage of what was... I don't know what One Nation actually announced, Paul. I can't make heads or tails of it because some of them are saying, OK, you should be able to access it during financial hardship. Well, you already can. You can do that. I checked the figures today. Last year, Australians pulled out $1.4 billion from their superannuation for a variety of different needs, so you can access it in circumstances where you might be foreclosed on your home. Barnaby Joyce seemed to get it wrong today. It's not just when you're on income support payments. That's one way you can access it, but there are other ways as well. So I'm just not clear what One Nation are proposing. We support that. We support those ability to get it out when you're in financial hardship. And we also, what we support, what's a very important point, it's given me the opportunity to make this point today, what we support is different from Labor, is we support people having choice in how they invest their superannuation. Superannuation should be primarily for your future. It's not a piggy bank to raid every year, except if you've got those particular hardship circumstances. But primarily, you get a tax break, a big tax break, to put aside for your future, to get people to save. And it's a good thing for our whole country to do that. Now, we just believe you should have choice. You should be able to manage your own super if you want to. This government's attacking that by restricting what you can invest in, including housing, when they don't put the same restrictions on banks and financial institutions. The Labor Party wants you all to put your money in with big banks and institutions which they can then take a cut of. Well, we don't support that. We support people's choice. We also support people to use their superannuation when they're young to buy their first home. That's an important investment too, the most important investment. You should have more flexibility and choice in your superannuation, but it should be there for you to save for your future.
Matt, I'll stick with you here because the environmental laws, which the government was fiddling around with before the last election, of course, have now put in place. You're asking for a delay for at least a year. We're talking here about a meeting that you had with the National Farmers Federation. This is all about the federal government's revised environmental laws. Why does it need a 12-month pause?
Well, here's a challenge for the Labor Party. As Darren said, he'd like the Labor Party to take the Bush Summit seriously. Well, if they do, they'd listen to farmers and delay these rush-through, unwise changes to environmental laws for a year. I met with those farm groups today because guidelines finally came out last week after the government did a deal with the Greens before Christmas last year to effectively take over large farming parts of our country. Just to give you one example now, if you farm within 50 metres of a watercourse, that's what it's called in the law, a watercourse in the Great Barrier Reef catchment area, you have to get both state and federal approval now to cut down trees and develop your land. That means in these areas, everything you do on your farm, because in some of these areas, anywhere 50 metres from a watercourse is the whole place. When it rains, there's water everywhere. And so this is absolutely ridiculous. One of the biggest federal takeovers of land planning ever, probably the biggest. The government has no idea what it's doing because it did this deal with the Greens at the last minute, didn't even really want to do it, and now it's trying to rush out these guidelines after the event, and no one is any the wiser. These guidelines don't define basic terms like significant impact. Farmers don't know what they're doing anymore, or what's legal anymore. And so we're just calling on the government to delay these 12 months. They were due to come in December this year. Give them another 12 months. We think they're stupid laws to begin with, but if they're going to proceed with them, get them right. And, Prime Minister, I think, is coming out to Dubbo next week. He could actually listen to farmers for a change and respond to this reasonable request.
The gambling legislation currently being debated by the Parliament has now been introduced to the Parliament. We'll find out where the Coalition goes finally on a vote on this a little bit later. But Darren, apparently the system will include the ability for somebody to opt out of all of it. Now, obviously, I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work in terms of broadcast, but obviously online is potentially what they're talking about here. There's already, a series of opt-out or do-not-call registers. Is this going to work?
You also have to opt in a sense of register, say, your date of birth and other bits and pieces. So there'll be ways around, whether it's the front door or the back door, of not watching those gambling ads if you don't choose to. I think limiting inducements, everyone seems to be supportive that has gone far enough in the past. Look, my view, I think we've got to support these sports and industries and keep the motor running, and therefore there has to be a trade-off and getting a balance between where can that revenue, that advertising revenue come from, and therefore, if you're an advertiser and you're allowed to advertise, what's your penetration with that advertising? So, look, we'll wait and see. I'm sure there'll be people who love it, people who hate it, but look, they've got to do something. So let's wait and see what the Parliament says.
All right, before eventually they want to stamp down on car ads because some people speed in cars. Inevitably, people always go too far with certain things.
Have a carbon emissions, Paul. Carbon emissions. We've got to, come on.
Correct. I get it. They'd love everything over to be over on Channel 2.
Only Tesla ads in the future will be allowed.
Yeah, they'd love it all to be over on the ABC, but alas, that's not the case. Where are you sitting on this, Matt? Are you going to try to amend some things in the Senate, or as is it will make it through?
I think these laws were pretty weak response to it. It was a very detailed report by the very sadly late Peter Murphy, a former Labor member of Parliament. She put a considered report together. We have been fighting, Sarah Henderson has been fighting for some tougher controls, including that opt-out model, including there was no restrictions on inducements at the beginning of this. It looks like we'll be able to get that. But yes, our position will be finalised tomorrow at a party room. I think we'll have a much better outcome.
All right, good man. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Darren. Do appreciate it both. Thank you very much. All right, quick break. Back with more. Can you believe it? About a dozen farmers have been fined. Why? Because they're not letting the people come onto their land who are going to destroy their land. I'll explain all of this in a moment or two's time. The fire up continues next here on Paul Murray Live. Thanks for watching. Now, your land's your land, right? And you should be able to say who can come on and off that land. Well, no, apparently not, of course, because if the Victorian government decides that they're going to put dirty big power lines, whether you like it or not, well, no, they're allowed to come in and they're allowed to start doing what they'll want with your land. Ben Buxton is a sixth-generation farmer and he joins us now from Western Victoria. Ben, nice to see you, mate. Tell us about the fight here and tell us what the hell happens. They start handing out fines if you don't let them turn up and start drawing up how to get you. Sorry, Ben Duxton, I apologise for that.
No, you're right, Paul. Been a pretty long, drawn-out process here, 4 years in of Vic Grid and the Labor government here in Victoria trying to come and access our land for transmission lines, and all to the point now where the Labor government's rolled out the diamond-encrusted red carpet to energy companies and are facilitating farmers being fined for actually standing at their gate and saying, no, this is wrong. This whole attitude of this Labor government needs to stop, and it needs to stop picking on farmers. And some of these people are in their 80s, Paul. So we've got people in their early 80s that have farmed their whole life and have been solid citizens, and now facing this real anxiety of having a fine hanging over their head and having multinational companies trying to come and take over their land. This project's being proposed to a Spanish multinational company. So a Spanish company is going to come in and kick Australian farmers off their own land.
This is what I find amazing. You know, the Victorian government turned around and changed the law to basically make it harder to complain about these things. They've now created a scenario where, again, if you try to stand up to say no, again, if it was any other environmental cause, well, they'd find a way to pat you on the back and nominate you to be Citizen of the Year. But the government, in the pursuit of its wants here, is willing to steamroll local communities and, as you just pointed out, do it in service of big international foreign companies.
Yeah, I think that's the issue here, is that we've really unpacked this. We've gone to work, as I said, 4 years in of our life has been put into this. But what this is about, it's about the snouts in the trough. It's about the billionaires. It's about the multinational companies. It's about the overseas institutional investors, and it's about the ex-politicians trying to line their own pockets with taxpayer subsidised money. And that's all it is, because it's not something that, and it's not a plan that will work for the next 100, 200 years. This is really intermittent power that is environmentally destructive. It's socially destructive. And we can't go like Chris Bowen is saying and have a system at whatever cost. And that's what this is. This is at whatever cost. At whatever cost relates to just massive increases of cost of living in every way we turn. And as farmers, we have to stand up for every energy consumer in Australia and making sure that we have cheap, reliable energy so we can actually have a thriving economy here in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but give us an idea here too. You've got this supposed new broom that's making its way through Victoria, but it's still committed to all of the old things. Give us an idea about what your part of Victoria is feeling about a new Premier, about a new government. Do they think that they've got a new ear here, or it's just time to flip the script and change as much as you can, mate?
No way known. Ben Carroll is Daniel Andrews, Jacinta Allen 3.0. And Jacqueline Symes. Jacqueline Symes, in her first day as Energy Minister, issued these fines. So Lily D'Ambrosio 2.0 is Jacqueline Symes. To do that on your first day to these people in their 80s and these other people in their mid-70s. And as I said, these are solid citizens. These aren't people that are out there to make trouble. I had 4 or 5 of them in my woolshed just recently, and they were standing around the people that have been fined. They said, well, I've never been to court. I don't know what court's about. They're not people that do this. And this whole railroading and bullying of farmers out there, all we want to do is produce the food, the fibre, the agricultural products for Australia and the rest of the world. This government is on a real dangerous path, because I can tell you the scenario that'll unfold is that we will continue to stand at the gateways. It'll be men, women and children. And we've started the Farmers Fight Back campaign, and we've got over 131 or 132,000 people signed up to that. So these Spanish overseas multinationals and this Victorian Labor government under Ben Carroll, who is Dan Andrews, Jacinta Allen 3.0, are going to have to drag these farmers off, and there'll be lots of them and there'll be lots of supporters. So they can go and get stuffed. We're not allowing them.
Good on you, Ben. I love it. All right. What's the socials? How do people stay in touch?
Farmers Fight Back, sign up, certainly get on board there, show your support, and we will be, there it is, we will be continuing to stand at the gate and making sure they can't get this ridiculous policy that they're trying to do.
Good on you, Ben. Keep up the fight, mate. Follow the website there and we'll stay in touch. Good on you, mate. Thank you. Appreciate it very much. All right, quick break, back with more. Some of the idiots on social media, known as politicians. What did they do while you were working? Oh, wait till you see this stuff. More in a second. While you were working, they were in Canberra. They were also posting garbage social media videos like this one, who's apparently the Minister for Small Business. Oh, yes, just totally focused, totally focused. This is what they're doing with their days. Have a look at all my stuff. Julian Hill is a Labor MP.
This is a big call, but super for housing may just be Tim Wilson's dumbest idea yet.
What about the walking, anyway? And, of course, finally here, our old mate Cara Cook in Queensland.
Hey, Mark, did you hear the news? Honour has doubled the rate of bulk billing GP practices.
That's terrific, Cara. There's now 3,800 GP practices across Australia who bulk bill all of their patients all of the time.
That's like an advertorial on one of those morning shows. Really? Tell me more about this vacuum cleaner. Here's the late debate. Wow.